Hello, welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I'm going to do my 14.7 ADC tier list. So if you enjoy content, like, subscribe, and let's get into it. To begin with, there weren't a huge amount of changes this patch. The only direct champion change was Smolder, and he received a small buff to kind of push him back up within just generalistic play, without making him take over competitive. On the other side of things, Static Shiv got nerfed. It went up 200 gold in cost, which hurt a couple of the users of the item. Primarily Zeri did get hit here though, and she was performing very well in Elite. Jinx, more generalistically, was not hit as hard, but she tends to be a bit stronger across all elos, which is why she maintains a spot in the S+ tier. And yeah, let's begin. So Jinx gonna be in the S+ tier. Spoiler alert, she's still the best marksman in the game. I had her rated here in the 14.6 ADC tier list, but she's just so she just works within so many different comps. Her ability to be strong during mid and late game, her snowballing effect, her range, her traps can be valuable, her global ultimate. There's just so many strengths to this champion, which all are kind of coming together to mean that she works so well. And of course, she is viable across all elos, which means she can maintain a spot in the S+ tier. Caitlyn, on the other hand, is performing pretty poorly at the moment. Well, she has spaces where she can obviously be used. You want to feed so much gold into this champion, however, she just becomes a bit of a sink. And of course, if you aren't able to consistently get advantages on Caitlyn, whether that's through the fact that your team aren't playing for you, you're not able to get the plates you need, not able to bully out during laning phase, then the champion just doesn't work. I'd really recommend other lane bullies which have a bit more reliability, whether this is like Ashe, for example, with her slows and her ability to just like run people down. But yeah, Caitlyn gonna be in my C2 at the moment. I wouldn't recommend this champion over other things, but yeah, not doing too hot. Kai'Sa, a bit better than Caitlyn. Definitely has more strengths in the fact that she can go different build variants, whether this is like on hit, the poke, the kind of like hybrid lethality variant. She definitely has a lot more variety of builds. She still tends to suffer from she's a bit like ranged. Lots of people do itemize her incorrectly. She's a bit of a hard to pilot marksman, which is why she does maintain a spot in the B tier. Not really going to adjust her from last patch. Ezreal going to stay in the C tier. Ezreal, of course, very much a skill dependent champion. For a mid elo tier list, I would not recommend playing Ezreal. However, if you do put the games in, and of course you are going like your Essence Reaver, Manamune, Navori can be situational, but this would be like Spirit of Shojin third slot. And yeah, there is lots of merit to this champion. I just wouldn't really recommend it over some of the other simpler to play picks, as he tends to be a bit more reliant on the player's skill. Ashe, however, definitely a recommendable champion. She has lots of utility, of course, the slow, the W, the ult, the E, all very valuable in that space. Her damage is very nice, of course, if you're going like for Kraken Trinity or Kraken Terminus, I've seen some people go in certain situations. Does have lots of viability. And yeah, in this case, Ashe, a solid S tier champion, very simple to play, great pick. Lucian, I'm actually going to move Lucian up to the A tier, so I'm not a big Lucian fan. I believe the champion can fall short in certain spaces, but he's definitely benefited from Navori being buffed, and some of his synergies do tend to give him a lot of power in laning phase. He's not as bound to Nami as Nami was bound to him. This is a bit different now that Nami's been changed, but that was kind of what was going on there. But Lucian, solid A tier answer. Honestly, I reckon with Nami being slightly better, her changes kind of pushed her more towards W, has definitely helped Lucian, as that was one of the primary picks being played alongside him. So yeah, he moves up to the A tier. Jhin, gonna stay in the B tier. He is gonna get buffed next patch in 14.8, but for the moment, he's still underperforming a significant amount. This is like the lethality and crit variants, neither are doing too well. Youmu's of course did get nerfed for ranged champions, which did indirectly hit Jhin pretty hard. He very much does value the movement speed the item gives him a bit of a safety net, allows him to like kite around in fights, which is something he very much values. And yeah, Jhin not performing so well at the moment. I'm not a Jhin fan. I believe this champ has difficulties obviously killing frontline. He does struggle into assassins. He's not got the same DPS output as a lot of other champions. Does have high damage, but yeah, the DPS isn't quite there, which is why he falls within the B tier. Of course, when this champion's strong, he does have value in both damage and utility, and I hope he sees some of that, as Jhin is a very unique champion. MF going to be towards the bottom of my A tier. For a very simplistic champion, she's not performing as well as I'd hope hoped she would. But she still definitely does have merits. Of course, her damage can be very high in like instances where you're getting like the Q pop, like when you're going down the lethality route. Of course, you can go crit. However, it doesn't tend to perform as well at the moment. So I would recommend lethality as being like your primary way to play MF. This is like Youmuu's collector, Edge, Shrouders. Sometimes opportunity can be viable. Hubris is an option. And yeah, more of an A tier pick at the moment, not doing as well. Zeri, I'm actually going to put in the B tier. I did have Zeri as an A tier pick, but she did get hit by static. I also don't recommend Zeri as much within low elo, or low to mid elo, as this champion does reward like movement, and kiting tends to be an elite skewed skill. That is like one of the main values of like high elo ADCs. So in Zeri's case, I'm going to put it as a B tier. Of course, if you are high elo and you are like proficient at playing Zeri, she definitely does rise up to compete with the likes of Jinx. But yeah, for the most part, I'm going to recommend her as a B tier option. I would recommend these other champs as better picks. Smolder, gonna actually sit towards the high end of the C tier. The buffs did do a decent amount for ADC Smolder compared to solo lane Smolder, which tends to go down the like AP and like bruiser route a bit more. Yeah, within the bot lane, you're seeing a lot more Essence Reaver. Navori, I would recommend over Spirit Shojin now. The crit ratio change on the Q definitely did help that. And yeah, he's performing fine. If you get to late game, then he is a very valuable champion. And if you are good at stalling out games, then yeah, there is a lot of merit to this pick. Twitch, going to maintain this one in the S tier. Twitch usually tends to be in the S tier no matter what the season is. The Bork Runans build doesn't tend to really change, but like Bork Runans, i.e. he's very strong in like the spots where you want to play him. He pairs quite nicely with Engage. He pairs quite nicely with Enchanters as like a hyper carry. And yeah, there's lots of merit to this champion. A great S tier pick. Then going to be in the A tier. This honestly can be both variants. The Q max kind of like high, not I guess it's not really lethality at this point. It's more like Fleet Essence Reaver. Like you sometimes pick up Collector, and then you go down like the high damage auto route. Or in other cases you can go the on-hit route where you are playing into a lot of frontline. You're able to maintain lethal, get your Ginsu stacked and like just chew through comps. Both are viable. Gives her a solid spot in the A tier. Samira going to be in the B tier. Honestly, like a low B tier option. I'm going to put her alongside Draven. Both these champions very snowball reliant, very elite skewed. In Draven's case, he is being buffed next patch. He should be a bit stronger with that. I imagine he might make a push for the A tier, as 5 damage on your Q is a very valuable thing to have as a marksman. But for the moment, both these champions very snowball reliant. I'd honestly, like in Draven's case, if you're not picking up Hubris in a lot of situations, it tends to just not be valuable playing this champion. He needs to snowball. He needs to take over games. If you're not able to consistently do that, don't play Draven, play other picks, which can, yeah, more consistently, like, win games. In Samira's case, she's not as bound to Hubris, but you do need Collector, you do need IE, you do need to snowball throughout the game, and once you're able to, like, consistently do that, there's lots of merit to this champion. She's a bit more reliant on being paired with Engage. You can't play Samira alongside Enchanter. It just doesn't give her the reliability she needs. And yeah, she's more of a B tier pick at the moment. Both are elite skewed, however, so yeah, they're here. Tristana going to be high in beta. I had a debate with some people in my comment section of my last video about Halo Blades compared to like Lethal and Fleet into like what you should be taking on Tristana. For Halo Blades, of course, you are looking at short burst interactions. You're playing more like an assassin. For Lethal, this is the extended trade pattern rune where you're able to more consistently maintain stacks on it. Whether you're playing into like tankier compositions, and in Fleet's case, tends to be a bit more just mid lane skewed where you're playing into heavy harass and you need the value of the fleet and the heal and the movement speed. But I would recommend Halo Blades in a lot of circumstances. This is something I'd cover. Halo Blades gives you so much burst and like can be really valuable laning phases up until I believe it was like Auto 7. I went and practiced and did like the maths for this stuff where lethal tempo can like become like more valuable as like you're able to maintain like extended fights. But yeah, you are tending to like opt into that when the pattern is extended. So yeah, Tristana, try Halo Blades, try Lethal. Both can be viable in like the spots where you need them. And yeah, the champion's fine, solid B tier option, close to A. Varus, going to be at the bottom of my C tier. He's elite skew. Well, he's pro scooter, I don't think at this point. This is both lethality and not to the same degree on hit, but on hit does have some level of elite pro play skew. On hit can be more viable across more generalistic play. Lethality, I would really recommend avoiding. It is very conditional, and like where you're able to get value out of it, you have to be playing into like non-sustain, hope your team gets you set up, understands the functionality of your champion. It's just too conditional, so I'd very much recommend avoiding it. But yeah, on hit Varus, please do go it. It is a fine option, but in a lot of circumstances, just play different champions to Varus at the moment. Yeah. And then else is going to be my C tier. He got punished pretty hard towards the beginning of this season. He was one of the biggest winners of the lethality changes. He got nerfed because of it twice, I believe. It might have just been the one such, I can't remember. But yeah, Collective and also did get nerfed, and some of his itemization. He is a bit better of IE being buffed, and definitely does help him. However, he still maintains a spot in the C tier. The champion is very reliant on being like a hyperscaler. And it's very, he's to a degree significantly harder to pilot than most picks, so I'm going to leave him in the C2 at the moment. Sivir, I'm a big Sivir enthusiast. I think this champion has a lot of merit in the fact that it's very hard to move a Sivir out of laning phase. If you're not comfortable in like being able to consistently like know that you can like win out early games, then Sivir is a great pick. She is a great mid to late game champion. Her damage is her DPS is very high, and it gives her a lot of value in those teamfight spaces. If you're able, a lot of the times, most of these champions need other picks to like buy space for them, whether it's like through tanks and chants and stuff like that. Sivir very often can just buy her own space. Her ultimate and ghost can give her a lot of value here. Of course, her passive also gives her MS. And yeah, I'd really recommend trying Sivir. She's a pretty solid champion, a good A tier pick. Kog'Maw, honestly bordering S plus tier. Kog'Maw is a great option if you're looking for something a bit more niche, won't pick up bans, has good pairings, honestly, with both engage and support. He's a pretty good early game champion at this point. If you're able to get your Ginsu's online very quickly, then he does a lot of damage early on into the game, which is kind of like a misconception where like a lot of people just think, oh, Kog'Maw has to be this like late game turbo carry. Of course, if you do have the setup for this, then he still does fit that like kind of like area. But Kog'Maw, still a very solid early game champion, definitely slept on at the moment, and solid S tier pick, close to S plus. Xayah going to be in the C tier. Xayah got buffed through Navori, gaining 5 AD, but is still pretty weak at the moment. She's towards the high end of the C tier, but I would really recommend other champions over Xayah. Her damage output is fine. Her kind of like setting point is, of course, her safety net and her ultimate, and the root on her E gives her a lot of self-peeling tools, which a lot of other marksmen don't really have access to. But this does make her a bit more pro-bound, and yeah, for that reason, she's going to be in the C tier. The other champion who I'm actually going to put next to Kog'Maw is Nilah. Both these champions are very close to S plus tier, and if we do see Jinx nerfs, then I imagine both these two will push up into this tier. Nilah is really strong at the moment into a lot of things. Has great synergies with her like XP sharing passive and her like just generalistic passive, which kind of revolves around shielding and healing rotations. And yeah, there's lots of value there, so she can be paired quite nicely with enchanters. She of course does work with engage. She does want to go in and kind of like fight melee alongside picks, so there is strengths to that kind of pairing, those kind of pairings as well. So she, unlike Samira, is not as bound to just certain things. Of course, she does have great pairings in like Senna, Taric, and I believe there's one other which she pairs really nicely with, but yeah, Senna, Taric are the main ones I can think of top of my head, which work really nicely with this champion. She works well with Yuumi, of course, that is another pick which you can work with, but Yuumi I wouldn't really recommend. But yeah, Nilah, great pick, works really nicely. Really close to S plus tier alongside Kog'Maw. Kalista, probably the most pro-gelled champion in the game at the moment. She still does see play there. However, I imagine it's probably going to drop off by the time we get to MSI. If anything, it might just diminish throughout the entirety of the event. Yeah, this pick's close to falling out of meta. And within solo queue is still really struggling. So yeah, she's going to be at the bottom of my C tier. Probably the worst marksman in the game you can play at the moment. She like only really is useful of like your early game onto your 2-item spike. By the time you get later on past this 2-item spike, you just get you just fall off. Like, you oftentimes go Terminus as like a third item, but it just doesn't have the same value as a lot of what the other marksmen pick up, whether it's like their IEs and stuff. And then, yeah, they outscale, you become redundant, and there just isn't reliability in this pick unless you are very proficient at the champion. Like elite play where you know you're able to get like games closed out early, and yeah, pro play oftentimes can relate to this. So Callista, bottom of the C tier, bit elite skewed, but yeah, definitely underperforming at the moment. Senna, probably the peak of the A tier at the moment. She's still a solid marksman, like a good ADC pick. Works in a lot of situations, often going like the lethality build. I'd recommend going like opportunity center at this point. Yomu's has been nerfed pretty hard for ranged champions, so it just doesn't tend to be as solid of an item to go. Yasuo gonna also be my A tier. Yasuo is a great option for like for a non-ranged bot laner. If you're looking for something melee, Yasuo has good pairings. He can like compete against a lot of the marksman pool, and it gives him a lot of value here. Of course, Kraken Slayer being pushed towards level scaling, same goes for Lethal Tempo, has definitely hurt him a bit. However, Fleet might be a space here, I don't know. I was trying to test it yesterday, but someone I know dodging the queue, so that was unfortunate. But yeah, definitely recommend trying Fleet Yasuo. Of course, if it isn't good, then don't continue going it. But yeah, there might be some sort of merit in that space if you are playing into like heavy harassed lanes, and you need a bit more MS, and you need the heal. But yeah, Lethal Tempo, Kraken tends to be a standard. Bork is an option, i.e. Shieldbow tends to fall off later on into the game as your itemization isn't as good, but yeah, still a solid option, good A tier pick. Ziggs, weirdly enough, has like this odd kind of problem where one tricks don't perform very well on the champion. This is very kind of like weird compared to most of the picks on this list, as like what you tend to see is like best at champion in the world are very like good at their pick and can oftentimes succeed. Those are like the OTPs for the most part. Ziggs doesn't really have that same level of success. He tends to just drop off pretty quickly in terms of his win rate, but I don't know whether this is the fact that the champions doesn't really have any depth to it. But yeah, the pick is fine. He's a good AP option. I'd recommend other things over Ziggs at the moment. But yeah, there is definitely something to look into there. I will probably end up doing some more research for my next video on Ziggs. But yeah, keep that in mind. Ziggs does have a very low skill ceiling, can function as like this AP siege bot and has good harass, but yeah, that is something I'm very interested in and I would have to definitely look into. Veigar, solid A tier pick. Honestly, he's pretty good in both mid and ADC at this point. Mid and bot lane. ADC, of course, attack damage carry, but I tend to just cover all that. Veigar in this case works really nicely here. I believe he's been buffed twice over this season. Has definitely benefited from both these. Works really nicely off Shreddiers as like a third, fourth slot item. Of course, you can kind of flex around what you want earlier on into the game. But yeah, there's lots of merit to his pick. A solid AP carry option. Swain going to be my S tier. Swain I've talked about a lot. I love Swain. I think Swain is a great frontline AP option. He really fits a niche which like next to no champion does, as like this like drain tank mass team fighting APC. Works really nicely in the bot lane. Bot lane is probably better than mid lane Swain at this point. Has good pairings. If you're able to hold picks in Swain's ultimate, then there is lots of value there. Has great Drake fights as well. And yeah, there's lots of power in this pick. He spikes really hard off like the Rylai, Malignant, Leandry 3-item core. He also works really nicely with Zhonya's as well, like as like your core 4 items. And then last stock can be kind of flex, but yeah, Swain, great S tier option. Seraphine, going to be my A tier. Seraphine is a solid AP option still, like an Enchanter, AP damage, CC bot hybrid. Just isn't as good as she used to be. Got hit pretty hard when they did the changes to kind of push her more towards support, but she's still a fine AP option, a good A tier pick. Twisted Fate's kind of dying off at this point. He got nerfed a couple patches ago, and his ADC play rate has just been dropping ever since. I'd recommend playing AD Twisted Fate in the top lane if you are going to play it anywhere. AP Twisted Fate tends to be a bit better in the mid lane, but yeah, it's not performing anywhere near as well anymore. And yeah, he finds his spot in the C tier. Wei also kind of dropping off at this point. Kind of like since the champion's been released, he started off relatively popular in the ADC role, but yeah, has slowly dropped down. He's a solid B tier option, and honestly with the buff stacks patch, we could see him gain a bit of play rate here as being a good AP high skill kind of bot laner. And yeah, there's lots of merits to that. Solid B tier option. ASOL is a unique one. There's a high chance ASOL bot is overpowered at the moment. Just there isn't really the sample size to back it up. I've seen a lot of people kind of like talk about this, like the ASOL one tricks. I'm a big enthusiast of this champion, have been ever since its release. I think scaling picks which can like enable stalling out games have so much value, which people really don't kind of see until you actively like play against it and understand like what the functionality of a champion does. Yeah, ASOL, great scaling, a relatively good early game at this point, and there's lots of merit to that. Synergizes really well with a lot of good support pairings, and yeah, a solid, like, probably one of the best AP damage picks in the game at the moment. And then Karthus sits towards the bottom of the S tier. He's a great AP option if you're looking for something which can kind of compete in a lot of spaces, and has a really valuable ultimate, like the global ultimate, of course, great tool for like just global damage, of course. But yeah, has strong builds, of course. You can go like the Malignance route. I've seen some Luden's Companion, but I believe Malignance is probably the best item you want to go. Leandries is an option. Of course, Rabadon's still what you want to go. Crypt Bloom, Void, Zonya. Yeah, there's lots of options there, and he's a great APC. So yes, really solid pick here. And yeah, that's my thoughts on the tier list. Once again, I'd really recommend playing Jinx as like your primary pick at the moment. But there are lots of good like more niche options like your Kog'Maw, your Nyla, your ASOL in certain situations, and then Ashe, very simplistic to play marksman, great utility. Twitch, great carry potential. Swain, Karthus, really good in their own niches. And yeah, I'd say honestly, ADC meta if you nerf Jinx, in a pretty good spot. So it'll be interesting to see how MSI shakes up, what we see getting picked there. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. See you next one. Goodbye.